Hello, and welcome to the channel if you're new here, or welcome back if you are not. My name is Kayla, and I'm the owner and lead wedding planner here at Transformed Events, where we help DIY couples to ball out on a budget. So today we are going to be chatting about a really hot topic. My goodness, it is making the decision to fire a wedding vendor that you hired for your wedding day. And I'm going to be giving some really practical next steps to take once you make that decision. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I actually have two clients going through this right now, and I wanted to make a video about it just to help someone else who might be going through the same thing out there, but maybe you don't have a planner or a coordinator to rely on and ask these types of questions to. So I really hope that this is helpful for you. So first, let's go ahead and talk about how we come to this decision on if you actually need to fire this vendor, or if maybe you're the one that might have unrealistic or unreasonable expectations for them and they really don't need to be fired. This is a really fine line, because on one hand, you hired them to do a job and they have an obligation to do that, right? But on the other hand, it could also be a contractual miscommunication, and maybe you don't fully understand the scope of work that you did or did not hire them to do. I think that it's really important to note here that there's a difference between a wedding vendor not doing the job that you hired them to do versus then them maybe setting some boundaries to stay within the scope of work that you hired them to do, right? So what do I mean by that? So let's take a photographer, for example. Let's say you had your engagement shoot and you were running about 15 minutes late and the appointment was only 2 hours long. So then let's say they send you 5 sneak peek photos 2 days after the shoot, and the full gallery will be ready in about 4 to 6 weeks. So first off, if they only take photos for 1 hour and 45 minutes, they should not be fired because of that, because they're adhering to their own terms and the time limits, right? Since you were the person that was running late. And then secondly, I hear this one all the time, is when people complain that their photos are taking long when the deadline hasn't even passed yet. So let's say, for example, we're coming up on the 5-week mark and you're getting a little bit anxious and frustrated with them because they haven't delivered the gallery yet. That is actually an unrealistic expectation, because they told you that the time frame was 4 to 6 weeks. So even if they deliver in that 6 weeks, that's not them missing the deadline, because it's not as fast as you would hoped it would be, right? So in this situation where the wedding vendor might not be the problem, maybe you need to reevaluate your expectations and decide if their services are still in line with your wedding vision. So maybe you can adjust those expectations to fit within their contract that you signed, or maybe you do need to find someone that has a faster gallery delivery date and maybe can meet those expectations. But it's still not that original vendor's fault. So now let's go ahead and talk about some red flags that you might notice from some vendors and when it actually is their fault. So these include constantly missing deadlines after they tell you they'll get you something by a certain time, right? They've promised you certain things verbally or contractually that they're now rescinding or changing the terms on, or they're just being shady in general and beating around the bush when you request information from them. You're never able to get in contact with them, or they take an unreasonably long amount of time to get back to you, and any other sort of unprofessional behavior that you might notice with interacting with them or gather from other people. These are all definite signs that you should consider terminating this relationship with them. Now, I'm not saying that if someone does something on that list one time that they need to be immediately fired, because at the end of the day, us wedding vendors are only human, right? And sometimes we make mistakes, sometimes we drop the ball. What I am saying is that if you notice these behaviors are becoming a pattern, it might be time to cut your losses so that you don't run the risk of them making a grave error on your wedding day and then you're forever resentful about it, when that could have been avoided in the first place. What I also want to note here is that before you make the final decision to let them go, consider if you have even given them a chance to make things right in the first place, right? There could truly just be a gap in communication, and this vendor could not even be aware of the issues and problems that you're experiencing. So you absolutely need to have a conversation with them and offer them the chance to explain and maybe even rectify the situation before going the route of canceling their services. During this conversation, you also want to be as objective as possible in explaining what the issues are and what you need for them to work on, or what needs to be adjusted in order for you to both feel comfortable moving forward with this arrangement. I promise you that most wedding vendors are not just straight up terrible people who are purposely giving you poor service, but you always want to have a little grace, right? Because you never know what someone might be going through personally, and chances are that most people would do almost anything to turn the situation around instead of leaving a bad taste in your mouth, having you communicate that to other people, right? And then missing out on money that you and other people will be giving them. But at the end of the day, you also always want to listen to your gut. If you go through all these steps and something is still just off and your gut is telling you just to move on, you should definitely do it. I have never once regretted listening to my gut feeling, even if the bad thing I predicted was going to happen didn't. But there's definitely times that I regret not listening to my gut and then something bad happens. So definitely rely on your natural intuition to make the decision. Moving on, if you decide, yep, this is not working out, they had a chance to make it right, it's still going poorly, and you just need to let them go, here are some steps to do that. First, you want to let them know in writing that you are terminating this professional relationship. It's also best to CC someone on this chain just in case you need a paper trail later on down the line, because you never know, right? But luckily for you, I have an email template that is already created for you that you can find linked down below in the description box to make your life easier, because I know that coming to this decision was super tough. It's also really good to give them a few short bullet points in that email on why you're letting them go specifically, so that it's clear. Maybe they can work on that in the future, right? And that's also in the template below. But I also understand if you don't feel comfortable doing that and you just want to get this over and done with. So feel free to edit the language as you see fit. Secondly, you want to check your contract with them for any financial liabilities that might fall on you. So for example, in my contract, there's a clear sliding scale on the time frame that a client cancels my services and what amount they're financially liable to still pay me in that event. And this is really just a protection for us wedding vendors, because the closer to a wedding date that you cancel our services, the less likely that we will be able to book another wedding or couple for that date, right? So we're missing out on money because of that. So you want to really thoroughly read your contract and make sure that you understand all the terms of the cancellation. And when in doubt, definitely always consult a lawyer. This video is in no way intended to be legal advice. And if you're unsure of something in a contract, it's better to be safe than sorry. Third, you absolutely need to get a contract addendum from them, which is just a legal document stating that these services have officially been canceled. You both sign off on it, again, so down the road that there's no he said, she said sort of situations, right? It's always best to have a paper trail in the unfortunate matter that something needs to be taken into court. Fourth, if there is anything that you are still waiting on from them, you want to list those things out with clear deadlines of when you expect them and what next steps you'll be taking if you do not receive them. This is not going to apply to many vendors other than like product-based vendors, maybe photographers, and a few select other cases. But going back to that photographer, for example, maybe you haven't received the gallery yet and it's well past the date, and you are making it clear to them that in this email, you need to receive said gallery by, say, September 1st, 2023, or else you will proceed to taking them to court for financial repayment. I know that sounds a little bit harsh, trust me, but the absolute clearer that you can be, the better, so that this is not dragging on for like months and months and causing even more of a personal toll on you than it already has. I personally would say that unless you've invested like a significant portion of money that will really make a difference in your life, then court is probably not the route that you're looking to go, right? And you might just say, I'll cut your losses, don't even want whatever it is from them, whatever, and that's okay too. I know for me, sometimes it's just like, whatever, who wants to go through this battle? Who wants to go through all this back and forth, right? Maybe let's say it's $1,000, and even though it might be a lot in this season of life, it's small in the grand scheme of things, right? And the court fees might make you lose out on even more. So that's just something that you have to decide would be worth it for you personally, versus say if you already paid a retainer on a venue that you're now canceling and the retainer was $10,000, I'm going to want to fight for that money back, right? I don't know about you, but $10,000 is a lot more than, say, $1,000 or a couple $100s or whatever it is. So lastly, I know this will be super duper hard, but please try to leave on a positive note and be the bigger person if possible. You can end a relationship with being stern, but also not defaming someone or completely bashing their business online, right? And throwing out maybe slurs and personal attacks. Because at one point you liked them, right? And you decided to hire them. So try to keep things as professional as possible and try to leave your emotions out of it as much as you can. Now, what I'm not saying is to not tell other people about your experience or not tell people why you decided to go this route, right? You absolutely don't need to be like hush hush or lie or not state the facts of the matter. What I am saying is that we don't need to be hyper extreme and tell everyone in your family and all your friends to go leave a bad Google review, right? And have other people online sending them personal attacks or threats or anything like that, or anything just with malicious intent to try to ruin their life or ruin their business or anything crazy like that, right? Because that's just wrong. So I really hope that you enjoyed watching this video. Please go ahead and like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and share it with a friend who unfortunately might need to cancel one of their wedding vendors. And go ahead and download that email template in the description box for them or for yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!